In this cycle of the Senate, 51 times I've come down to the floor to address a waste, fraud, or abuse of taxpayers' hard-earned dollars. And this is week 51. Today I'm here to draw attention to the $2.3 billion owed to the United States from uncollected and anti-dumping and countervailing duties. These are nations that have violated our trade laws, signed up through treaties or trade laws or trade agreements, and then violated those, or companies from those countries have violating those. And there are laws that prohibit that and enforce that, and this is what it ought to be. Let me say at the outset here that I do support international trade. It bolsters our economy. The statistics show that. It creates new opportunities for American businesses overseas, and it enhances America's security and global role. Trade raises economic prosperity. It has been a proven fact. Just take my state of Indiana. In recent years, Indiana has exported over $34 billion in goods and services. Hoosier manufacturers export automobiles, auto parts, industrial machinery, medical devices, and much more. Indiana is a national leader in pharmaceutical and agricultural exports. In 2014, our state had the highest share of manufacturing employment per capita and highest manufacturing income share relative to total income of any state in our country. Nearly more than 1 in 4, actually 1 in 4.5, according to the statistics, jobs in Indiana is due to our ability to export overseas. That is a significant, has a significant impact on our economy here in Indiana. And so it's vital for our state to have strong trade laws that prevent other countries from engaging in unfair trade, so Hoosier companies can compete with them on a level playing field. Having said that I support international trade for all the benefits it is to my state and to our country, I also strongly support the use of our trade laws to protect American companies against dumped or subsidized imports from foreign countries, China in particular. Under federal law, anti-dumping duties are special fees that are placed on products shipped to the United States at unfairly low prices. Sometimes this occurs when a foreign manufacturer sells a product in the U.S. for less than it costs to even make that product. They're not even trying to regain their costs. They want a market share. And so they dump products into the United States that undercuts our American-made goods. I will not stand for that. I will not support that. Some who support trade laws say we shouldn't be enforcing these. It'll ultimately work itself out. I don't believe that. The law is the law. The agreements are the agreements. They need to be enforced. Countervailing duties are fees placed on products imported to the United States that are made in countries where the foreign government unfairly subsidizes the product to lower their sale price. We're a free enterprise system here in America. Yes, there has been some subsidies, and we should not be a violator of that in terms of unfairly breaking the laws, and we generally are not in that situation. But many countries we have found and proven through a process, a judicial process, that they have unfairly subsidized their products. And we need to impose the fees and the penalties against these countries and these companies. So, both dumping and countervailing duties are how we fight the predatory practices of foreign nations that unfairly hurt American manufacturers by making American-made products more expensive than a foreign competitor's product. In order to level the playing field for American companies and their workers, the U.S. Department of Commerce calculates the duties that should be placed on the imported product to make up for these predatory trade practices. And once Commerce calculates the money owed to the United States, the U.S. Customs and Border Protection agency, CBP, which oversees all imports into the United States, is responsible for collecting these fees that are imposed. And even though CBP is legally directed to collect all of these fees, recently the Government Accountability Office, or GAO, discovered that from the years 2001 to 2014, the CBP has failed to collect about $2.3 billion in anti-dumping and countervailing duties. Now, there are a number of reasons for why CBP has trouble collecting these fees, but one key reason the Government Accountability Office highlighted is that CBP have simply not assessed the fees once the item is initially imported or once Commerce determines how much is owed. I mean, basically, they're just behind the curve here. So the agency that is responsible for collecting these fees simply is not doing its job successfully enough. CBP is supposed to collect the fees within the first 6 months of entry of the product. But the GAO, in its accountability process, found out that of the 41,000 uncollected bills, 41,000 uncollected bills, the median age of the bills was 4.5 years, and they were supposed to do it in the first 6 months. Clearly, we've got some dysfunction here. Clearly, we have some waste that needs to be corrected so that we can enforce these trade laws. Otherwise, we're sending a signal, go ahead and do it. Chances are we'll get away with it. Their assessment system is not functional. You've got a good chance of avoiding the fee altogether. That's the signal that's being sent out to countries around the world and manufacturers that are dumping or that are unfairly subsidizing their product and making our products, our competition, less competitive. GAO has found that out of the 41,000 uncollectible bills, the median age, as I said, 4.5 years. We need to get them back to the 6-month standard. And additionally, we've learned that nearly 1,000 of these uncollected bills were between 10 and 13 years old. This is simply not acceptable. It is a dysfunction of government, is the dysfunction of the bureaucratic processes that we have to deal with here in Washington. If it was somebody else's money, maybe we could make an excuse for this dysfunction. But this is taxpayer money. This is money that has been working hard-earned money each family has to take home at the end of the week to pay the bills, to pay the mortgage, to save money for college. And it is just unacceptable to have this happening here in Washington, D.C., where this waste, fraud, and abuse just continues to ramp up on our calculator here. American manufacturers work tirelessly to compete on a global market, and sometimes against those that don't even play by the rules. Those that don't play by the rules have to have the rules enforced. So enforcement of our trade laws through the assessment of anti-dumping and countervailing duties is essential to ensure that a level playing field for American workers and to show that predatory practices will not be tolerated. That is one reason why I supported bipartisan legislation that was enacted earlier this year that would give the Customs Border Patrol people the tools necessary to better enforce our trade laws, such as requiring CBP to better track which foreign companies may be less likely to pay fees owed to the United States. Fortunately, CBP has agreed with the GAO's recommendations, and now that Congress has also provided Customs Border people with the tools to implement and enforce these recommendations, I am hopeful, but also watchful, that CBP will improve its track record in the near future. We have a responsibility not only to sort out a waste of taxpayers' dollars or misuse of taxpayers' dollars, we have a responsibility to try to correct the errors, to give the tools to the agencies to do their job as we've ordered them to do, and then to oversee and make sure. It's one thing that the job is done. It's one thing to come down here and identify a problem. It's another thing to come down here with my colleagues and offer a solution. It's another thing to follow up and oversee that solution and see what we can do to make sure that this doesn't happen again. We're far too short on oversight, far too long on rhetoric. So with that, I'm adding $2.3 billion for uncollected anti-dumping and countervailing duties, bringing our price tag, our taxpayer price tag, to over $328 billion plus dollars of waste, fraud, and abuse. Mr. President, think what we could do with that $328 billion. Help our defense, help National Institute of Health produce life-saving new medical techniques or therapies, pave some roads, essential functions of the federal government, or even better, not have to take this money from taxpayers and simply throw it away. Mr. President, with that, I yield the floor.